In a world where magic once presided over mankind, its existence faded in time as the world began to heal from the atrocities of war. Science and technology have become the hallmarks of progress. But the peace is once again under threat by those seeking to reobtain magic at any and all costs. As one of the enslaved Imperial infantry, fate has chosen you to stand against your captors, ignite the flames of rebellion, and uncover the secrets of a forgotten past. Together, a band of heroes embark on a journey to face mythical creatures, an empire's relentless pursuit of power, and most of all, confronting their personal limitations and place in the world. Experience a tale of love, compassion, responsibility, valor, triumph, self-discovery, sacrifice, and what it truly means to live. Welcome to Final Fantasy VI. April 12, 1994. This was the day that Final Fantasy VI first made its debut for the world to enjoy. And over 30 years later, I finally played it and enjoyed it. I did. Too many people have told me that Final Fantasy VI is one of, if not the most underappreciated game in the long-running flagship series. At the end of my adventure, I am glad that I was convinced to give the game a chance, as my experience was fantastic. If you're deciding whether you should play this game, or for those simply watching this video for nostalgia, let's dive right in. Final Fantasy VI is a turn-based RPG where you control a party of 4, exploring various locales in the world. Icy mountains, barren deserts, dank caverns, steampunk factories, and many more. There are also a plethora of towns to traverse, teeming with valuable rewards to encourage players to search every nook and cranny that catches their eye. And that is what makes old-school JRPGs so special and full of heart. Where back in the day, when guides were not accessible, and players had to rely on their wit and comprehension skills to progress in the game. No UI holding your hand towards the next destination. So interacting with townsfolk is crucial to gather clues on where you need to go. And if you find yourself lacking in time or patience to search for your next objective, you can always research online and you will be pointed in the right direction. But at the end of the day, while this video covers the pixel remaster that is optimized for modern hardware, it remains true to its roots as an old-school RPG. The gameplay remains faithful to the original game while applying quality-of-life features that make the experience more seamless and compelling. Whether you are exploring the world, progressing in the story, or engaging opponents in battle, this remaster is the definitive Final Fantasy VI experience. Some of the setbacks of playing older titles is that 1. You will need to pull out your older consoles and assemble your setup. Secondly, in relation to the first point, you may even experience hardware issues given the uncertainty of the condition of your older gen console. And lastly, if you choose to play retro titles on PC, there's a high probability that the game will not run properly or optimally on your hardware. Which is why I highly recommend this pixel remaster of the game, as it ran buttery smooth on my PC with literally no issues or troubleshooting required. The UI has been reworked to be aesthetically pleasing with sharper resolutions and a slick interface. And should you prefer the classic appearance of the game, you can always revert the settings in the options menu. In a nutshell, you will have zero technical issues playing this game along with visual upgrades regardless of the modern hardware of your choice. While the game runs well without a hitch, the more important question is, why is Final Fantasy VI so good? Why do many people say that the game is underrated? And after finally completing my first run, I believe I understand why. There are simply many things that modern JRPGs no longer have that this game does. Let's begin with the combat. Like most of the older Final Fantasy titles, the 6th iteration of the game's combat is turn-based through random encounters. But what surprised me given my lack of familiarity with these older titles is the flexibility of your strategies. To be precise, I was surprised at how you can cast magic targeting only one opponent or ally, or all opponents or your entire party. So if you are facing 3 enemies each with 1000 HP, rather than casting Fira to only one of them for 3000 damage, you have the option to cast it to all of them but only inflicting 1000 damage each, which is what you needed in the battle anyway. While it may sound very minor in the greater scheme of things, I do appreciate the option given to players. because in modern turn-based role-playing games, Fira would be limited to only one opponent, and if you wanted to cast a spell that inflicts damage to all enemies, you would have to unlock a spell that is able to do so. Though there is nothing wrong with the approach of newer JRPGs, I believe this mechanic in Final Fantasy VI encourages players to be more tactical in their spell usage and mana pool management. In the context of the equipment of your party, Final Fantasy VI utilizes simple mechanics. Each character in the game can equip 1 or 2 weapons, a weapon and a shield, 3 pieces of armor, and 2 accessories. Yes, it is straightforward, but each piece of equipment contributes greatly to a character's combat capabilities, especially for accessories where characters' abilities in battle can change, offering a wider selection of strategies for players to experiment and utilize. Strengthening your characters is exciting and fulfilling. Like most JRPGs, you will level up your party by defeating opponents and accumulating enough experience points to get to the next level, increasing their stats and learning new abilities. But it can also be very hardcore should you choose to tinker with the Esper Magicite system. For the benefit of those unaware, Espers are magical creatures that you can summon to aid you in battle. They are also essential to the story, which I will cover in the spoilers section. But for gameplay purposes, Espers not only support your party in battle, but also provide new spells and abilities to party members. To permanently unlock their abilities, you will need to accumulate enough AP to master the Esper of your choice for a designated party member. You can then pass on the Esper to the next party member to master, and so on. What I appreciate with this feature is that it is never mandatory, while at the same time offers plenty of opportunities to further strengthen your party. Furthermore, there are numerous Espers scattered in the world, with many of them being optional to obtain, adding more incentive for players to explore the numerous locations in the game. Suffice to say that the Esper system syncs well not just in the gameplay, but also in the story, and I am glad that they are just not handed to players in a silver platter, but are instead waiting to be found. They even have backstories that are tied to the main plot of the game. But Espers are not the only optional unlockables in this adventure. Another reason why I believe there is charm and nuance to the older JRPGs that modern titles can't seem to capture is that developers nowadays underestimate players' excitement to explore hidden locations and secrets and be rewarded. Final Fantasy VI is rich with these hidden dungeons that yield great rewards, such as powerful gear and even optional party members. These hidden party members are very distinct, and trust me when I say that it is worth the effort to find them. Speaking of party members, what I do miss with these old school JRPGs is how unique each party member can be. Nowadays, it is party member A is a warrior that can deal great damage and absorb a great deal of attacks, while party member B is a healer that can heal and cast buffs but can easily be incapacitated, and so on. This to me can feel quite formulaic, but in Final Fantasy VI, it did not feel that way. Each member of your party in Final Fantasy VI has something unique to offer. From the basic trance ability of Terra, where she deals double magic damage and receives half temporarily, to the more complex characters like my favorite Sabin, where his martial arts abilities are performed through button sequences with the complexity being dependent on how powerful the ability is, and Go-Go, where he simply mimics the abilities of the rest of your party, which can get insanely powerful depending on your strategies. The party member system of Final Fantasy VI goes beyond your conventional build archetypes, and the customizability is what makes the combat truly shine. The game also encourages you to utilize all party members, as they will often be split throughout the story. While nothing new in the JRPG genre, I do appreciate that it is left to the player on how to split the party, as this will have players think of the strengths and weaknesses of each member of the team. While taking advantage of these gameplay mechanics requires some substantial farming and grinding, the Pixel Remaster Edition provides quality of life features that help expedite the process. To be clear, this is an optional feature where you can crank up the multiplier of the money and experience points received by up to 4 times the normal rate. Again, for those who want to play the game authentically, This feature is optional and can be turned on and off for those who want to use it. And as a bonus, you can also enable or disable random encounters at any time during exploration, as these encounters can be excessive in these old school titles. And now for the final section, that is the story. I mentioned earlier that this video will contain spoilers, so if you're looking to avoid that, consider this a warning. I repeat, this is a spoiler alert. So for those who want to know the breakdown of why I love the plot of Final Fantasy VI, let us continue. Spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. While the plot of Final Fantasy VI is not unique in the slightest, it is the journey, the characters, and how they grow over the course of the adventure is where the game's storytelling is at its best. In fact, it is the central theme of living life to the fullest, the value of relationships, and continuing to keep moving forward. That is why I believe this is the pillar of why these cast of characters are so relatable and beloved. Terra, discovering that she is half human and Esper, was in search of answers of the purpose of her existence to eventually realize that she is the living embodiment that humans and Espers can coexist. And what guides her to move forward is her love towards humanity, and will do everything in her power to protect that which she cherishes. Locke, a seemingly carefree noble thief fighting for the rebellion against the Empire, only for players to uncover that his motives run much deeper. What drives him forward as an individual was to reclaim his lost love, Rachel. While he failed in doing so, he gained much more from the closure, and that is to protect the future and to prevent others from suffering the way he did. Edgar and Sabin, who faced the personal dilemma of ruling a kingdom or carrying the weight of the crown in their shoulders. The two siblings have contrasting perspectives of the subject, but eventually come to terms with their position, chosen paths, and become closer as brothers. Celeste, who was infused with magic at a young age, becomes conflicted with loyalty and doing what is best for the world, which in the end, she chooses the latter, even if it meant turning against those who raised her. And Seltzer, a shipmaster who lost the love of his life, but continues to live in search of purpose, and realizes that the world is worth fighting for. All these stories were told fantastically, relatable to real life, and tie well to the main plot. While in the modern JRPG storytelling, the focus is usually on just the main protagonist. That is why I find it refreshing upon playing Final Fantasy VI that the story unfolds in the eyes of multiple characters, as this keeps the narrative interesting and gives them enough time to flesh out the story arcs of each character. None of their stories felt undercooked or left out in favor of other characters. I believe that modern JRPGs should return to this type of storytelling. Memorable cutscenes that stand the test of time. Who could forget the iconic moments such as the Phantom Train, the Opera House, Kefka and the Warring Triad, the manifestation of the World of Ruin, to reassemble the party, and many more. These iconic moments in the storytelling of Final Fantasy VI is why I believe that it is so memorable for so many. The pixel art style visuals that blend together with the masterfully orchestrated soundtracks result in a game that is very hard to replicate to this very day. Final Fantasy VI is proof that not all games need to have photorealistic visuals for the story and gameplay to be compelling. Final Fantasy VI is a game featuring small details and nuances that come together, creating a masterpiece. No hand-holding, no spoon-feeding, just simply explore and search for clues on where to go next. Character growth and combat are highly customizable and can easily hook players with its progression system that can be both casual and hardcore depending on player choice. The game world is oozing with rewards such as powerful equipment, abilities, espers, and new party members that bring it to life and make it worth exploring. The visual art style and soundtrack nail the tone of the story that make them truly memorable. The cast of characters were given sufficient prime time in their story arcs that did not feel lacking and gave a satisfying conclusion. Final Fantasy VI's story and gameplay is about the journey and not the destination. While stopping an evil empire from committing world destruction is nothing out of the ordinary, it is the execution of the storytelling where Final Fantasy VI excels, and the gameplay is amazing for both casual and hardcore players. If you are a turn-based JRPG fan and have not played Final Fantasy VI, It is never too late to jump into the pixel remasters, as it is available in all modern hardware, and it is truly an iconic game in the genre. I can only hope that Square Enix gives Final Fantasy VI the remake that it truly deserves. Not split into 3 games, just one standalone game that tells the same story with updated visuals and added voiceovers. Final Fantasy VI is the second mainline game I have finished and is officially my favorite in the series. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and do consider subscribing for more content. Happy JRPG gaming, and I will see you next time.